Story 1. In public, they had an amazing, perfect persona. In private, they were probably the nastiest person I have ever met. They always had something to say about someone. Story 2. Extreme shyness combined with an intense fear of rejection. Story 3. My legs got tired from chasing someone who wasn't slowing down for me. Story 4. You know how some people never get positive reinforcement growing up? That's why. Story 5. We are an 8-hour flight apart, and she said she is not sure whether we can eventually close the distance. Story 6. She needed a father figure for her children, and I realized I am not capable of that. They all deserve someone better. Story 7. I put my heart on the line when I was a preteen, only to discover she had no interest in me. She eventually moved away and we lost contact. 15 years later, she found me on Facebook. We reconnected, and she laughed at that awkward moment, which was my most embarrassing memory. Story 8. I realized she does not even know I exist. I still love you, Scarlett Johansson. Story 9. Effort. I have come to realize that there is no end of opportunity, so she might be the latest infatuation, but there will be many more that do not require a stupid amount of effort. Story 10. When I discovered he was not 100% sincere, did not give the same energy I did, and every time I said I love you he replied with me too, or worse, thank you, I was angry. Story 11. Simple. Fear of rejection. Unfortunately for me, her best friend and I ended up at the same school and they had talked about me. She would have said yes. I love my life, but my marriage did not work out and I always wonder what if. The only thing that makes me feel better is that if I had asked her out, it is possible I would not have my son. Thinking about not having him hurts much more than wondering what if. Story 12. I'm tired of being just a sex partner and never the cuddle buddy. Story 13. My fear was not rejection. Rejection is like ripping off a bandage. My real fear was being accused of being a creep or a stalker. A very beautiful raven-haired woman, about 35, fit and well-groomed, was alone examining plants at my favorite flower and garden center. She was not wearing a ring, was not on her phone, and seemed easy to approach. I did not speak to her because I worried she would say, "Why are you talking to me? Stop harassing me," and call for the manager. Those were exaggerations. She probably would have been polite and either the conversation would have gone nowhere or she would have said she was seeing someone. I really regret not finding out. I date regularly and usually have no trouble talking to women, but for some reason this situation intimidated me. Story 14. I met Liam in a professional capacity. He was a regular guest at the hotel I managed and also worked for the parent company. Liam was fun and easy to talk to, and we had a great time whenever he stayed. He would find reasons to extend his stays, eat dinner with me, bring me lunch, or have it sent to my office when he was busy. He was, I think, the most attractive man to ever pursue me. Because he was a guest and a colleague and we had a no fraternization policy, we agreed we could not be anything romantic. I did not want to risk my career, but the way he treated me was exceptional. No man has given me that level of attention and affection consistently without receiving sex in return. He was transferred to another part of the business and stopped staying at the hotel, but he continued to send gifts, flowers, lunches, and snacks on a semi-regular basis. Then I was transferred as well. He eventually became my boss's boss. I left the company and began seeing my now significant other. Liam has many children with his wife, and I suppose that is how it was meant to be. Story 15. I felt insecure because a friend told me he wanted to date me, but I did not believe him. A few years later, he said he had tried several times, but I had turned him down. Story 16. She told me every guy she was friends with ended up asking her out, and it ruined the friendship. I didn't want to ruin ours, so I never asked her out. The second I asked another girl out, her friends told me that she liked me. In the end, I am glad I chose to remain friends. Story 17. A thought. Why should I? If he were interested in me, he would pursue me. Story 18. He was going through a phase of seeing a different woman every time I encountered him. I did not want to be merely a notch on his bedpost. Story 19. At first, I definitely feared rejection and lacked self-esteem and self-worth. I stayed in contact, But now I realize I deserve better than someone who never made an effort and did not recognize how badly they behaved until someone yelled at them. Do not want to be with someone who only listens when it is convenient, never valued my presence, and never reciprocated the effort I made. I organized a surprise birthday party with their friends, gave them gifts every year, and paid attention to what they liked. I am surprised when they remember anything about me. They asked me whether I have siblings 5 years after we met. They do not notice things. Even though they are still attractive and fun to spend time with occasionally, I do not know if I can ever trust them. They even said they are not sure they want to do nice things for me anymore because they feel guilty after being yelled at. I do not want anything from them that is not genuine. I would rather receive nothing than something given out of guilt. Story 20. Nothing. I never liked anybody that much to pursue them, and I did not like the ones who were pursuing me. Story 21. I found out he was cheating on his girlfriend with me. Once a cheater, always a cheater. I had no delusions that he would stop cheating if he became my boyfriend. Story 22. She and her twin sister were guarding a gate. One could only tell the truth, and the other could only tell lies. When I asked if either of them would be interested in dating me, they wrinkled their noses in disgust. The gate swung open, and they told me to leave immediately. Story 23. I'm already married to her. I can't marry her more. Story 24. I was foolish to get involved with others. By the time I tried, I did not have any credibility. Story 25. I'm ugly, and I have the personality of a wet cornflake, so I knew nothing would come of it. Story 26. Someone pretending to be someone or something they are not. It is so easy to spot. Story 27. I met a woman at a friend's party. We stayed up all night playing Xbox and talking. We had almost everything in common and got on very well, especially considering I had just met her. She is jaw-droppingly beautiful, everything I could want in a woman. Then it turned out she likes women. When she mentioned it, a little voice in my head said no. One thing that concerns me is her choice of partners. She seems to prefer very masculine-presenting women. Oh well, whatever makes her happy. Story 28. 1. She was not really interested in me. 2. She chewed me out and humiliated me in front of my colleagues at a house party because I queued a 6ix9ine song on the Spotify playlist. Apparently, I am a piece of shit because I inadvertently played the music of a man who did inappropriate things with a 13-year-old girl. 3. Later that evening, she queued up Bump and Grind by R. Kelly. Story 29. Being savagely rejected. The worst thing a woman can say is not no. Fellas. Story 30. Her boyfriend. She is very attractive and we share many traits. I respect the boundaries of relationships, so I keep my distance. Story 31. He had no children. I had children and was not planning to have more. It did not feel right to deny such a wonderful person the opportunity to have his own children. Story 32. Just the consideration of mapping out everything that could happen exhausted me so deeply that I could not consider going through it firsthand. I immediately removed myself from it. My peaceful life of solitude is where my true happiness lies. Story 33. She was one of the most attractive girls in school. I didn't think she would be interested in me. Not that it mattered. I wasn't sure who I liked at the time. We only knew each other from writing class during our junior year of high school. It was fun. We probably would not have gotten through it without each other. Maybe that's an exaggeration. When senior year started, she sat with me at lunch along with some others I knew. After a few weeks, she stopped coming to our table. I often wondered if she was interested in me, but I assumed she wasn't since I never showed her any romantic attention. As I said, she was attractive, so it never crossed my mind, especially since I was questioning my sexuality. There is more to it, but that is another long story. In any case, I hope life is treating her well. Story 34. She is my best friend and recently ended a long-term relationship. I want to tell her how I feel, but now is not the time. Story 35. She had to move from the country when the pandemic started. Story 36. She was in a committed relationship at the time, and I was struggling with immaturity and a lack of self-control because I was a marijuana-smoking burnout in college. Story 37. She was married. Even if she was not, she had too much self-respect to date someone like me. I felt lucky just to be friends with her and to see her at work. That was about 6 years ago, and I have not felt any attraction to another woman since. I have also had many problems that would not be fair to impose on another person. I am working on getting better, but it is a journey best taken alone. Story 38. They had a drug problem and lied about some of their drug use. Story 39. She was playing with my emotions, so I respected myself and decided to stop everything. It happened yesterday and I feel great. Story 40. After dating for a while, I asked him how he felt about me. He did not have romantic feelings, so I offered friendship. I am happy to have him in my life as a friend because there is no point in pursuing someone who does not feel the same way. Story 41. He told me the truth. It would have been a long-distance relationship. I respected him for that because there are so many people who like to string others along. I met my now husband a year and a half later. We have been married for 25 years and are still going strong. Story 42. I realized he treated me like garbage. He never saw me as a friend. He did not treat me like a person. I was just another member of his circle of prodigies, existing to open doors for him and help him reach the top of the class and get into the big schools. I realized I liked him only because he gave me attention. Story 43. He told me that he did not think gay men should be allowed in communal showers and would not budge on that position. Story 44. She is a good friend, and I see no indication that she is interested. Her friendship is more valuable to me than risking making her feel uncomfortable and losing her from my life. Story 45. She said she wasn't ready for a relationship but got a boyfriend weeks later, so I was the problem. Story 46. She had just moved near a town an hour away. We matched on the Hinge dating app and arranged a date. It was a fantastic evening, and I was excited to see her again. The date was cut short because she was called into work. She needed the money because her finances were precarious. That night, on the way home from her shift, she fell asleep at the wheel and totaled her car after hitting a ditch. Fortunately, she suffered only some moderate whiplash. She could not afford a new car or to pay rent without a way to get to work, so she had to move back in with her parents 6 hours away. Story 47. I am a woman. A friend told me that the man I was interested in was gay, but this friend was gay himself and in love with him, and could not stand the idea of the two of us running off together. Despite obvious signs that the man was not gay and was actually very much into me, I believed the friend was young, impressionable, and incredibly naive. It has been 30 years since this happened. I do not think the relationship would have lasted long, and I have been happily married for years now, but I still regret listening to the friend. I would have loved to see that relationship take its natural course. Story 48. Okay. In my sophomore year of high school, I pursued a girl I knew already had a boyfriend, but I decided to give it a try. I found her home phone number in the phone book. This was years ago, and I am in my 30s now. I called, and her stepfather answered. He mistook me for the boyfriend, which was probably the only reason I was able to speak with her. We talked for a few minutes, and I asked if she would go out with me. She apologized, said she could not, and hung up. The boyfriend later turned out to be gay. She eventually started dating a man who looked almost identical to the first boyfriend, except he was not gay. Last I checked, they are still together. Story 49. She seemed very interested, but suddenly she ghosted me. I still think about her sometimes, but I was not going to chase someone who cut ties. Story 50. He is not gay. Chinese submarines have better gaydar than I do. Story 51. Often I don't pursue someone because I think they are out of my league, so I spare myself the rejection. Story 52. She wanted to have children, and I want nothing to do with them. We are still friends, and she is married and has 2 children. Story 53. I need to do some work on myself before I try again. Story 54. I felt crippling self-doubt and could not believe someone who looked like her would be with someone like me. Story 55. Her brother was one of my closest friends. If it did not work out properly, it would risk making our friendship awkward. Story 56. I was at work. She was a customer. It seemed inappropriate. Story 57. She made me feel like she was using me for rides and money, and that was all I was good for. The worst part was that I had a thing for her for years, and when both of us were finally free to date, she treated me that way. Story 58. My best friend went after him instead and set a precedent for how the rest of our friendship would go until I eventually kicked her to the curb. Story 59. They take hours to respond to my texts, but they are a gem in person. Story 60. I valued our friendship. I began developing romantic feelings but decided to preserve what we already had rather than make things awkward. Story 61. I was seeing a guy who was 100% a waste of space. I realized I deserved someone who puts in as much effort as I do, so I ended the relationship when I saw how selfish he was. Story 62. My post-relationship cockiness. She was my high school crush and I never thought I had a chance with her. Suddenly she commented on my Instagram and said we should hang sometime. I could not believe it. I had recently broken up with my ex and was wilding out, seeing other people. I had issues feeling desired in that relationship, so I started posting myself on Instagram a lot to get engagement. I think she noticed and got turned off. We ended up never meeting. I have since grown and realized how icky that was. But now it is too late. Everything happens for a reason, though. Story 63. Material security. If I want to pursue someone I like, I want to be able to provide enough to put food on her plate if I ask her out. I want to have decent shelter where I can invite her and spend time together. I want her to feel cozy and safe with me, so I plan to make my life much more comfortable for both of us. This does not come from an expectation that men must provide. It reflects my personal experience. Living in poverty made me realize how much you can do when you have enough resources. Story 64. She consistently left my messages unread and never initiated conversations or suggested meeting up. When we were together in person, we had a great time, but I could not handle being the only one making an effort. Story 65. There is no room in my life for a girlfriend right now. After dealing with all my other obligations every day, I have no time, devotion, energy, or emotion left to give to anyone. Story 66. I was in a new country for a contract position and had to leave when my visa expired. I had already been through a long-distance relationship and was hesitant to do it again. Story 67. She is not interested and told me multiple times up front. That does not stop me from catching feelings, though. Story 68. I was coming out of a few bad relationships and liked a girl I was close to. Because of those experiences, I decided it was better to keep the friendship than risk spoiling it with a relationship. I enjoyed being close to her but did not pursue a full romantic relationship. Story 69. They left the country, blocked me, and contacted me once, about 1.5 years later, but made it clear they would never reply again. It has been over 4 years. I miss them terribly. No, we would not have worked out. Story 70. She already had a boyfriend, and I did not get along with one of her friends. That friend had enough influence to get me removed from a group chat, so I decided to pursue other people. Nowadays, I use dating apps, talk to women at parties, and a friend said she would set me up with someone. Story 71. Nothing really. If I truly like someone, which is rare for me, I would at least confess my feelings. I am a shy, introverted person, but when I liked someone for their personality and because we were compatible, not just because they were pretty or handsome, I always told them. Story 72. I could tell he really did not feel the same way about me. There was a lack of reciprocation and little effort to get to know me on a deeper level. He was brooding at first, which drew me in because he seemed mysterious. However, he became too mysterious, moody, and sad all the time, which brought down my mood. I am a pretty happy-go-lucky person, so I do not know why my silly heart was attracted to him. I guess some things are beyond our control. Now I am in a much better place. I am talking to a man who makes me laugh and smile, and vice versa. He brings out my cheerful personality, and we make each other very happy. I might marry him. Story 73. Growing up, I felt I had a face even my mother could not love. My dad told me my mom was embarrassed by my acne because it hurt her beauty business. Looking back, I had at most 2 pimples at a time. I never pursued anyone. That may be why I had many female friends. It is a miracle I got married. She had to make the first move very obvious. Story 74. Realizing that I meant nothing to someone who meant everything to me. Story 75. She was kind and beautiful, the most popular rich girl in school and far above my league. She never even knew I existed, let alone go for some poor beanpole goth. I wasn't her type. She liked the most popular guy in school, whose dad owned a small chain of karate dojos in our county. If I'm not mistaken, she ended up marrying him after college. Story 76. She liked that person, and I do not have the courage to pursue them. Story 77. Got a girlfriend. Saw the largest cold sore on his lip that I had ever seen. Had racist friends. Story 78. I have an ask only once policy. Value your time and dignity on this planet. Do not waste them on people who do not see your worth. Story 79. It turned out that I was socially awkward enough to mistake friendly politeness for interest in me. Story 80. I feel anxious every time, but I like being alone, so it works out either way. Story 81. They opened their mouth and nonsense came out. Killed my infatuation. Story 82. She could not tell time on an analog clock, looked at me as if I were the weird one, and said that I must be ancient. For the record, I was 2 years older than she was. Story 83. Someone I liked more didn't like her. It was stupid because in the end I didn't get either of them. Story 84. Rejection felt firm and absolute. Kind of stops you in your tracks. Story 85. Her dad was a scary motherfucker. The man she was dating was sucker punched by her father for arriving about 15 minutes late on their first date. She did not speak to her father for 2 years. The man did not want a second date. Story 86. I went out on not quite a date, more of a hangout with my crush and 2 friends. I think she already knew I kind of liked her, but I was put off by how much she talked about getting very drunk, being hungover, and how that was all she looked forward to. Later, I found out she was mostly attracted to women. I heard mixed reports that she was bisexual, but I stopped caring, so it was never going to work out. With anyone else, it was usually because they were already in a relationship or because I felt uncomfortable being friends with someone I had a crush on. Story 87. I moved across the country for someone who could not communicate at all. In the end, it was a good choice, but he was perfect otherwise. Story 88. She had a boyfriend. I was confused why she wanted to hook up with me. When I gently turned her down, she slept with my roommate instead. That was the day my romantic delusions about women were destroyed. Story 89. I found out she was talking behind my back, shaking my head. The other person already liked someone else. Story 90. I am not in a mentally or emotionally good place to be dating anyone. I struggle with suicidal thoughts daily. A relationship should be balanced, and I cannot focus on committing to anyone but myself. Right now, a partner would be more like my caretaker than my equal, and that is not good for either of us. I am sorry you are feeling this way. If you are thinking about harming yourself or feel unsafe, please contact local emergency services or a crisis line now. In the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are elsewhere, please seek local emergency numbers or crisis resources. I can help you find support or talk more if you would like. Story 91. They started dating someone else before I could summon the courage to say anything, and I saw how they behaved in a relationship. I dodged a bullet. Story 92. I was dating a single father of 3. I adored him and wanted things to work. 2 of his children were likable and easy to be around. The youngest, though, was the epitome of a brat. Rude, loud, and always the center of attention. She talked incessantly about nothing, and something about her really got on my nerves. I ended the relationship because I could not have this child in my day-to-day life. I could not be a live-in girlfriend or play any kind of stepmother role to her. My dislike would become apparent and cause issues. They both deserved better. And I deserved a life not filled with constant annoyance. Story 93. They are not interested, out of my league, or already in a relationship. Story 94. I chose to become more independent rather than relying on someone to be my main source of happiness. I am learning to love myself and to stop neglecting my needs. I'm working on ending people pleasing. Story 95. I loved a woman so dearly for over a decade. I remained loyal to her even when we were not in a relationship. She slept with a mutual friend who betrayed us, and she tried to gaslight me even though I had proof. I lost myself that day and became cold and heartless. I cannot be the person I was before this incident, and, of course, I can never pursue her. It feels as if I will become physically ill if I see or speak to her in person now. Story 96. I met his girlfriend. I didn't know he even had one. She was incredibly nice and stopped immediately. Story 97. In college, I projected my feelings onto friend A and fooled myself into thinking he liked me back. Friend B sat me down and bluntly told me that this guy knew I liked him but was not interested. I was devastated and embarrassed. Then I invited friend A to dinner with my friends specifically so I could ignore him, laughing out loud. I was a dumb 18-year-old. Story 98. He carried a torch for his ex, otherwise he fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Story 99. I worked at a call center. A new agent sat next to me. She was decent and I liked her. I never had a problem picking up women, so I got her number after a couple of days. The moment she told me she was a bartender, I lost interest instantly. I do not want a woman who is a bartender. You are asking for trouble. Story 100. She thought all races should stick to themselves. As someone who looked very white and was half Mexican, I was a little taken aback, especially since she did not know who her father was. Story 101. I'm a 35-year-old friendless virgin and I work at a grocery store. What can I offer a woman? Story 102. His behavior patterns were too risky. He stirred the pot. Girls I had never met direct messaged me, telling me to back off. He asked me to be his girlfriend while he already had one. He could never be straightforward and honest about anything, including dating, finances, family, and where he grew up. He exaggerated, or lied compulsively. He would completely freak out and snap over small things and became easily irritated. He was passive-aggressive and played games. It was a confusing mix I couldn't figure out. It stressed me and triggered my anxiety, so I blocked him for my own sake. It may also have been my own self-sabotage. Story 103. They were not available. The age gap was not illegal but was definitely too great. They were simply not attracted to me. For what it is worth, some of those have become excellent friendships. Story 104. I am in a monogamous marriage. I told my wife at the beginning that I would never cheat, but if someone were interested in me, I would definitely discuss it with her. There have been people I might have pursued but did not because I am married. I have not been approached by anyone expressing interest. Alternatively, I may have been completely blind to it. In any case, I made no pursuit. Story 105. She and I were flirting when she said she really admired some of the authors for I Am 1776. Story 106. The first man was too shallow. The second man was married. The first man is still shallow. The second man later got divorced, and some years after that he asked me out. He has been married 9 years and is going strong. Story 107. He was my boss and the president of the company where I worked. Story 108. I asked her out and to this day I remember it. EW, no. I'm so sorry, no. She walked away. My friend wanted to beat her ass for saying it that way, laughing my ass off. She didn't, but she does crack now. Story 109. I am not mentally well. I am neurodivergent, which makes things complicated. Every time I meet someone I might like, I stop immediately because I remember that we are not typical and I no longer pursue them. I would be more comfortable with someone like me, or at least someone who understands mental health well. Story 110. I asked her on a date. She said no. I said okay and moved on. Story 111. I heard him tell a girl in our class who had told a friend that she had been sexually assaulted that she was too ugly to be assaulted, so she must have been lying, and if she had not been, then it was a blessing that someone had touched her. He was not part of the conversation. He had just eavesdropped. My feelings for him vanished instantly. Story 112. They changed their hair. Turns out I only liked the hair. I was 13. Story 113. The usual with every woman I develop feelings for. Overwhelming fear of rejection. It can be so bad I cannot breathe and I start sweating profusely, with a crushing tightness in my chest. Story 114. I dumped him. He got married and had 2 children. 40 years have passed, and all I want to do now is know if they divorced or if she died. I know it's savage, but I made a huge mistake. He really loved me and I did not know it at the time. I know it now. Story 115. Our names rhymed, or at least that is what I told myself. I met him just after starting a relationship with my soon-to-be ex-husband. He took my breath away. I did nothing. I did not think he noticed me, and if he did it would have been only physical. He had been a player in college. 10 years later I saw him again and he still took my breath away. He was with his wife and I was with my family. Maybe next lifetime. Story 116. They were older than me and straight, though I only knew them for less than 2 days. Story 117. I had been very interested in Steph, who was friends with Jen, a woman dating one of my friends. Jen led me to believe there was some interest on Steph's side after we had hung out as a group a couple of times. So I asked her out. We went on a few dates, a picnic, a hike, and dinner at her place, and we were having a good time. Then we went to a restaurant for the first time. Previously, when we had hung out as a group, it had been at bars, so I had not really seen her interact with waitstaff. She was extremely rude to the waitress from when we sat down until we left. The salads were too warm. The soups were too cold. She complained that the pasta was too floury, even though it was fresh pasta. She said it took the server too long to ask about refills and so on. We finally finished and I asked for the check. She loudly announced that I should not leave a tip for poor food and poor service. I left the waitress a 200% tip, apologized profusely, and asked her to please tell the chefs that the food was delicious. Steph stood up and walked out without saying a word. That was our last date. Story 118-1. I figured he did not like me. Even if he did, that does not mean he would want to date me. 2. We are not really supposed to date coworkers. 3. He probably has a lot going on in his life and does not have time for a relationship. Story 119. He had a girlfriend when I first began to feel butterflies. Eventually they broke up and he returned to dating sites. He swiped on my profile several times, and each time I closed the app because I was waiting for the right moment and I was scared. I finally got the courage to swipe. He usually appeared after a few swipes, so I thought it would happen again, but after searching for a while he never showed up. I lost my chance. Later I learned he had gotten back with another ex and that he had wanted to pursue something with me. Story 120. My girlfriend dumped me a few weeks earlier, and I was beginning a new life as a single man. I went to a bar in the middle of nowhere with a dance floor and promised myself I would talk to the prettiest girl there. 5 minutes later she walked in. She was short, cute, had a killer smile and seemed approachable. Of course, I could not build up the courage to talk to her. An hour later, a friend of hers walked up to me and said she thought I was cute and would love to dance. I did not dance, but I said yes. The next song was slow, which I could do. We talked and hit it off. We exchanged numbers, talked a lot over the next few days, and she eventually invited me to her place. That evening we had sex. She was amazing, one of the best asses I had ever seen in real life. I was smitten. We talked more and went on a few dates. A few weeks in, she told me that the night before she had taken too many perks and people were so worried about her that someone had to drive her home. I stopped seeing her because I did not want to worry about someone getting so messed up that they overdosed. I did not want to fall in love with her, so I ended the relationship. Story 121. I asked her out once. She said she was busy and told me her whole schedule, so I thought she was just busy. When I followed up, she said, "Let me get back to you," which is worse than hearing no. Story 122. I overheard him say he doesn't like women with small breasts. Story 123. I have a language barrier when communicating with someone I like. I am deaf and I struggle to understand spoken language. Story 124. I was struggling with my mental health and was not in a place where I could be a good partner. Now I am asexual and aromantic, so it worked out for the best. Story 125. I met an absolutely gorgeous and intelligent woman, and we have clear chemistry. She said no, so I respected that decision. Story 126. They ignored me and only acknowledged me when I was beneficial to them. It hurt. I really liked that person, but I guess life goes on. Story 127. I am best friends with her. We agreed not to be more than friends, despite initially connecting because of attraction, and I am happier this way than I would be if we tried to become more. We still behave like a couple in many ways, but our relationship is deeper than with most of my past partners because we do not worry about keeping a romance alive. We understand each other on a deep level, share our feelings and daily lives, and do not have jealousy or insecurity getting in the way. Story 128. There is always a point when they have either turned you down directly or made it clear they would rather not speak with you. Let it go. At that point, you are being rude about it. Story 129. What is still stopping me is that he said he has a lot going on right now. When he was interested in me, I was not, but now I understand his perspective. I am interested and want to see where this goes, but I did not tell him because he seems to be over it. What suggestions do you have for my situation? Story 131. She had a boyfriend. 2. She acted unstable. 3. She didn't know what she wanted. 4. She was much older than me. 5. She had a lot of issues. 6. She played hard to get. 7. She had too many male friends. 8. I feared rejection. 9. I had my own insecurities. Story 131. I am not what she deserves. She is further along in life than I am, and it would be wrong to pursue her when I am not on her level. She is saving for a house and has her own truck. I still live at home and cannot drive. I cannot imagine asking her out. I am practically a kid compared to her. Story 132. I was told by a mutual friend that he did not see me that way. A few years later, he confirmed to another mutual friend that he felt the same way about me. I would say he is my big what if. Story 133. The fact that I would be going to a university halfway across the world. Story 134. The fact that she already has a life set up and that she said no is enough. I am still waiting, but the crush I have for her is fading a bit. Story 135. Their drinking habits bothered me. They went through a phase where they posted on social media that they were drinking every day. Turned me off. Story 136. I realized that no matter what I did, I would never be physically attractive enough to get the time of day. Story 137. It would not have worked out because of our circumstances. We both knew we liked each other quite a bit, but we were painfully aware that perhaps we would be together in another life, not this one. So we quietly parted ways. I am still recovering from that experience because it is very recent. Story 138. She had a volatile temper and seemed to enjoy blowing up. She said she felt much better after one of her screaming matches. No. Story 139. She was something of a partier, staying out past closing time at bars several nights a week. I am much more settled now, so that lifestyle was a problem. I did not want to pressure her to change, so I ended the relationship so she could continue being herself. I still have strong feelings for her, but I know it is for the best. Story 140. I found out that she is unintelligent, and I am sapiosexual. She was eye candy, though. Story 141. She didn't show any signs of liking me. My friend liked her too, and we don't share many interests. She considered me only a friend, and eventually I stopped liking her so much. Story 142. Effective communication, personal hygiene, and the sound of other people's voices matter to me. I know it sounds odd, but some voices are highly irritating and I cannot tolerate them. Story 143. A few reasons were the fear of rejection, not wanting to lose her as a friend, and mostly my overthinking. Story 144. They are famous. But honestly, that is not going to stop me. I do not think I ever liked someone I knew. Story 145. I liked a coworker and had been thinking about asking her out. I missed 3 weeks of work with pneumonia, and while I was out, she accepted a new job. Story 146. Oh man, I waited from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. for him to get off work, and at 7:55 p.m. he told me he did not want me to wait for him anymore. What the heck? Story 147. Everyone told her I was gay, crazy, bipolar, homeless, and a waste of time. They said other things I prefer not to repeat. At the end of the day, she felt a connection with me and they were jealous. To this day, she loves me. I just wish I could show her the truth and who I really am now. Story 148. Math was challenging. I have wanted to be a veterinarian since I was 8 years old. I went to college for a pre-veterinary degree and found that the amount of math was more than I could handle. Story 149. He was madly in love with a girl who did not care about him, but he treated me like a toy. He wanted me to stay friends with him, but I knew I was being manipulated for the 340,405th time. Meeting men who are only nice to the woman they want is not healthy. Girls, please notice the signs and walk away. Story 150. I found out he still lived with his parents in his mid to late 20s. I do not think that is bad or a red flag. It showed we were at very different stages of life, and I knew anything I pursued with him would not work logistically with my lifestyle. When I learned about his living situation, all the extravagant and luxurious possessions he owned made sense. Story 151. My type is hard to find. My standards and expectations make it difficult. I believe my type does not necessarily like someone like me. I have to search carefully for what I want. Story 152. She only wanted sex. I wanted a deeper connection with her. I liked her a lot, and it hurt that I was wanted only for sex. Story 153. They were taken. I know, at least in my mind, that I am not good enough for them. I was not in a good place in life at the time. They did not reciprocate the effort I tried to put in. Those are a few reasons. Story 154. She would be a mother-in-law from hell. Story 155. Almost all of the men I was attracted to were gay or bisexual. That is not my cup of tea as a straight woman. Story 156. I should never have stopped playing baseball. I chose to play college basketball instead. But my heart has always been baseball. I know that now, but it was unclear then. Story 157. She was the spitting image, a doppelganger of a previous girlfriend with whom I was still good friends. They had totally different personalities and nothing in common other than looking very similar. When my best friend met her, he said, "Oh my, anything you want to talk about?" He assumed I had unresolved feelings for the first woman, which I did not. I remember laughing and being judgmental about an article on Rod Stewart that showed pictures of all his wives and girlfriends over the years. They are all blonde and look alike. History shows that I also have a type, though it is not the same as Rod Stewart's. I overcame my fear later in life and subsequently dated other women who all look similar, much to my best friend's continuing amusement. Story 158. I met him online through Reddit. I left everything behind for this wonderful man. I am now married to him and we are building a beautiful life together. And it is just the beginning. My only advice is to go for it. Do not overthink. Give yourself a chance to love. I wasted 18 years of my life being like my former self, so do not be like I was. Try to be happy. Good luck, Reddit users. Story 159. A difference in values really struck me when I realized it. In the past, I would ignore such issues and go ahead, only to deal with conflict later. I was very into one woman and we talked about family. I am firmly against having a housewife or a stay-at-home mom, and she really wanted to be one. That did not lower my opinion of her. It simply showed we were not compatible. Story 160. It was so beautiful it left me speechless. Story 161. My insecurities and my best friend affected what happened. On Halloween, I met a sweet guy who asked me out. I had just broken up with my ex and was ready to date again. But my best friend thought he was talking to me out of pity and only wanted to sleep with her friend. He asked me out the next day and I said no. I really liked him, though. Story 162. Their mother did not approve. She was very forceful, And I knew there was no way we could stand the next 40 years together if she remained my mother-in-law and my spouse lacked a proper backbone. Story 163. She was a serial cheater who slept around a lot. According to her friend, she used hard drugs in private. Story 164. He was rude to the waitress. I know it is an old trope, but it fits. He spoke to her horribly and was condescending. She asked if we would like wine recommendations to pair with our meals. He laughed and said something about why he would ask a waitress for wine recommendations. I said, yes, please, that would be lovely. I know nothing about wine and would love to know what you think. He reached across the table, patted my hand, and told me he would order something he knew I would love. I could not take it anymore, so I asked the waitress to cancel my order and left. It was only our second date, but we had been flirting for months. Story 165. I chose an abusive man who had served in the military over a shorter man. Story 166. While in college, I really liked one of my classmates. We talked a bit online and she seemed very nice. One day she saved me a seat next to her and her friends. I got really nervous, said hi, and went to another seat, feeling bad because I thought she expected me to sit beside her. I had never felt so nervous before or since. I don't know why. After that, I felt so bad that I stopped talking to her. We hadn't talked much and she didn't respond, so it's fine. Story 167. I was going to, but a buddy of mine started dating her. When she broke it off, he stalked her. I knew that ruined any chances I had. Story 168. I pursued a boy when I was about 16. He was 23, so I thought he was one of those older, cool, got his life together guys. He was training to be an aircraft engineer, super driven, funny, and smart. Young, naive me honestly thought he was going to be my future husband. We worked together in retail, and I would make excuses to be on the same shifts, hinting to my supervisors that we had to have our breaks together. Ashamed to say, I even hung out at the park I knew he walked past to run into him before work. He was not interested in me whatsoever. He just saw me as a stupid kid. I would regularly cry, wondering what was wrong with me. He moved away not long after, and when I saw him at the mall, he walked straight past me and wouldn't even say hello. Years later, through social media, I found he had come out as gay. I sought some comfort in that. I don't know why. Story 169. At various times I have had crushes on women who worked at my local coffee shop, record store, and other shops. I only ever saw them at work, and as a customer I did not want to ask them out because I would be putting them on the spot at their job. If they said no, future meetings would be awkward. I always hoped I would run into them in another setting, but that never happened. Such is life. Story 170. I knew my life wasn't in a spot that would allow the following: dates, restaurants, holidays, or use of a car. These are pretty basic. I'm not talking about 5-star restaurants or a 2-week getaway to the Bahamas. Just the basic things. Story 171. They liked someone else, and I encouraged them to get together because I thought they would be adorable together. I have absolutely no regrets. They did not get together at that time, which was sad. However, we got together a couple of months later. Story 172. He hated cats and wanted my family to get rid of our cat, which was more than 10 years old. Story 173. Confidence and being raised with the rule that a boy must make the first move and call to ask you out. Story 174. I knew I was way out of her league, but at our 30th reunion I learned I had a chance. Her father was also a high-ranking state police officer, and I was quite the rabble-rouser at the time. She still looks as good today. We talk every so often, but I am married and she is not my type anymore. We were also alphabetically next to each other in classes and at events. If I had then the mindset I have now, we would have been together. I no longer fear rejection. I have much more confidence than I did. Making money will do that, I guess. She does very interesting civilian work on complex military weapons. Story 175. She said that when we hooked up without a condom and I finished inside her, she replied, "Ah, hell no. I know what you are up to, devil woman." Story 176. I'm tired of people assuming I'm lazy, stupid, a gold digger, a whore, and who knows what else just because I am a mother. I've concluded that most people make this assumption. If anyone out there can see that this is a horrific stereotype, I'm too tired to look for them. Maybe I'm the one who's lost, but it's not worth the hassle. Story 177, Aromanticism. There are several people I could see myself sharing the rest of my life with. I love them deeply, just not romantically. I do not think it is fair to pursue them when I am not capable of giving them the type of love they want and deserve. I made my peace with this a long time ago. Story 178. When she said, "Sorry, you're just not my type," that was all I needed to hear. I moved on and found a woman who was truly interested in me. Story 179. She was a single mother, and I did not want to date someone with a child at the time. Story 180. They didn't want me in their lives, so I cut them out for good. Story 181. He's married. As much as I wanted him, I wasn't going to cross that line. Story 182. I wanted both chemistry and compatibility. We had sparks and people enjoyed hearing us discuss and dive into topics. He did too. He was sexy and clever but a bit of a party lover, and I sensed deeper issues he kept buried. I liked him, but we were too different. I think he'd be sad if he knew I ever entertained the idea. His unwillingness to face his problems, I suppose, is why it did not work out. Story 183. I am a girl, and it is hard to tell if other girls are gay. Story 184. I liked someone for 9 years and learned they had a boyfriend for the last 2 years. Story 185. He wanted children within a year. I said I wanted to finish college and travel for smoke, so he gave me a 3-year time frame. Story 186. Being at the same job has so far prevented me from pursuing a woman I really like. Story 187. I have experienced doubt and a complete loss of self-esteem. The last few years have not been kind. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.